Hello, good morning, and a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us for day 5 of our WPP BAV Alibaba 11/11 Global Shopping Festival broadcast. My name's David Roth from WPP, and it's my pleasure to be your anchor for all of our broadcasts for this Global Shopping Festival. Well, today, day 5, Friday, our theme of the day is all about social responsibility and purpose. And we have a number of sessions today on that theme and on that topic. We promise you a very thought-provoking day as we delve into the whole aspect of purpose, sustainability in a China context. We'll also be talking to Lodo, our winner of the WPP Alibaba Pitch Fest, which enabled the winner, which in this case was Lodo, to participate in 11/11 for the very first time. And we'll be talking live to Lodo's founder. A little bit about Lodo, but probably more important for all of you, their first initial 11/11 experience. Well, please, as we go through the program for today, please do use the hashtag which is on your screen now, and any questions that you have, please just send them to me, david.roth@wpp.com, and we will do our best to answer them during the course of our broadcasting. Now, if you missed any of the sessions over the course of this week, and we have had some amazing sessions which you can catch up and watch when you have time. All you need to do is go to the website that you are currently on, and you'll see some links that will take you to the broadcasting that's taking place from Monday to yesterday afternoon. But please don't do that yet, because we have some great programming coming up. And first, like we've been doing every single day, is to go live to China to get a perspective of 11/11 from the various different WPP operating companies who work in China, who live in China, and who are at this very moment heavily involved in all aspects of 11/11 for our clients. So today we're going live to Shanghai, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce to you James Bay, who is the managing partner of Wunderman Thompson in Greater China, and also to Joyce Ling, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Wunderman Thompson China. James and Joyce, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's getting late on a Friday afternoon in Shanghai. You must have had an amazingly hectic and busy few weeks, so much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. And thanks everyone for joining us today. So as David has said, we are located in Shanghai, and we've been in the mix over the past 1 or 2 months, going about carrying out the 11/11 preparations for our brand partners. So I think talking into the topic of today, I think today we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of the Chinese e-commerce market, especially over the past 12 months, past 12 to 18 months, where we've seen a lot of changes, partially due to the cost of the pandemic running its course, and also a lot of it because of the way that a lot of government policies have also changed, how that has affected the commerce environment, and definitely how it has impacted the 11/11 festival as well. So I think in this past year, the China market has really experienced both challenges and opportunities, and is facing a long-term revolution given changing consumer behaviors. The pandemic has really accelerated the need for brands to relook at the role of digital in their business. And the new government policies have taken for the digital ecosystem.
Yeah, I think the change that the pandemic brought over to the market, not only it's something that consumers can really feel, but retailers absolutely feel a lot of it too. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of new opportunities. The retailers have been kind of forced into changing their business model to be even more digitalized and more embracive of the new opportunities. But at the same time, the retailers are also facing challenges. Innovative business models are emerging, they're happening, new touch points, new technologies, and new ways of consumers are shopping everywhere, going everywhere. I think all of these are pushing our retailers to really further blur the lines between the roles that you're playing at online and offline. I think a couple of years ago, we started talking about, when EC is really blooming, is it killing brick and mortar? What's going to happen now? I think it's a time for them, and it's with a pressing timing too, for them to think about, what do I do between online and offline, and what different roles are we playing? And also gaming rules have changed on different platforms too. So with all of these challenges, one big issue that the retailers are thinking is, how can I catch up? How do I not fall behind and lose my customers? So because of that, we're also seeing a shift. Well, it's a shift, but I think it's more of being more exploratory. Different touch points are doing different things now. So for example, a lot more D2C platforms, a lot more social commerce platforms like TikTok, Douyin, they're all having commerce functions now. So we're seeing retailers to start exploring possibilities away from marketplace e-commerces, and even with the trend on direct to consumer, particularly through WeChat mini program commerce, they're looking at how they can have a presence on places like WeChat mini program commerce, where more penetrations are happening because of the social presence.
Yeah, I think Alibaba is definitely still the undisputed leader. That's where most of the business and most of the traffic is happening. But the diversification of the ecosystem, we are seeing consumers spending more and more time in more evenly spread out through the ecosystem. So that also has a very direct impact into how brands are really activating on Double 11, right? In the past, just having a single presence on Tmall is a guaranteed success, right? But with more of the traffic being spread out through the different channels, more consumers spending time with the stronger adoption of social commerce and live commerce. So the role of these channels actually, and the role that they play in Double 11 is also becoming very critical. So one example is one particular brand that has a lot of success, especially in live commerce. It's a brand called Diversification. They are a Korean fashion brand, so they do sort of preppy kind of clothing. And I think one very interesting thing about this particular brand is that they have had a lot of success on Tmall. And on top of the success on Tmall is that they also went into live commerce business within the Douyin platform as well. And I think one very interesting thing about this brand is, like, unlike many of the other brands where dependency on live commerce is using the top influencers and using heavy discounting, Diversification actually has managed to obtain a lot of success to become the #1 clothing live commerce brand on both platforms. By not using heavy discounting, nor leveraging big KOLs. So it's really about doing heavy test and learn, understanding which set of consumers coming in at which point of time in the day, and what type of content and what pace actually works for them. And then using this type of content to really develop the brand voice and building more brand love and driving conversion from there as well. And then at the same time, we're also seeing, of course, the resurgence of brick and mortar with a lot of the pandemic issues coming down in China. But we also seen that, especially within Gen Z, a lot of consumers are still loving to go into the retail stores, checking things out. They may have slightly different preferences in their offline behavior. But what we saw was that, especially during the height of the pandemic, a lot of brands started to explore new business models, how to better leverage and integrate the offline and offline resources. So let's say MAC Cosmetics, which was the leading brand, moving into new retail very early on. So what they really did is that when at the height of the pandemic, when a lot of consumers aren't going to the physical store, they really looked at how do I effectively leverage my offline resources, my beauty advisors and makeup artists that are in the online space, rather they are in the offline space, where they create where they connect all of their retail stores and then acting their consumers doing one-to-one customer service all through the online platform.
Yeah, I think there's a common point of the two stories that you brought over. One with Diversification is it's very scenario driven of content, right? Really think about what the customers are expecting to see certain kind of content, and then that makes them want to shop. And I think for the MAC new retail store as well, they created a very scenario-driven store where you get to go in there and do something that's very socially driven. And all of these become triggers for them to purchase. So talking about scenario-driven, I mean, for Chinese consumers, there's a very big scenario for us that really make us want to shop. Yeah. Which is duty-free when we travel abroad. But then unfortunately, with the pandemic, it's very difficult for us to go anywhere now. But we're kind of known for expecting that to be a big highlight of our trips, going into the duty-free shops and buy luxuries and cosmetics, perfumes, and all of that good stuff. So I think that actually kind of shifted in the past 1 year, 12 to 18 months as well. We're seeing Chinese governments spotting that opportunity and really changing the policy of transforming a traditionally very promotionally driven channel like travel retail into something that's more scenario based. Creating a new opportunity for those who are unable to go abroad and shop to go to a destination in China, and most possibly the Hawaii of China, Hainan, and give them that opportunity to shop and buy more with duty-free products. I think that's really interesting and very smart.
And we saw brands like Estee Lauder collaborating with the duty-free giants of China, which is specifically China duty-free, where a channel like a travel retail channel like duty-free usually is it serves almost like a data black hole for a lot of brands because consumer behavior data sits with the retailers, not with the brands. So Estee Lauder actually collaborated with China duty-free to create a D2C layer that's integrated with the transactional backend of a channel like China duty-free, allowing them to be able to profile consumers more effectively, and that actually worked out pretty well for them. But I think at the same time, when we're on the context of duty-free and Double 11, with the expansion of the digital ecosystem, the duty-free channels are also moving into e-commerce and social commerce. Mm-hmm. So China duty-free also runs their Double 11 activities, and that also plays a different role in terms of when we're looking at where China consumers are really shopping right now. Duty-free is really becoming a big competitor to many of the big marketplaces as well. So at the same time, when we are looking at the biggest giant of all, Tmall, Tmall actually in this year rolled out a new revamp of the entire Tmall environment, which is called Tmall 2.0, where in the past the platform used to be a little bit more closed loop. You can use the tools and the modules that's available in the platform. What has really opened up, that has moved from this closed ecosystem to an open ecosystem, is that it allows brands to create more customized experiences within the Tmall environment. So the concepts of mini programs have really moved into the Tmall environment as well. So brands can create all types of CRM-related customer experience, VR stores, product customization tools directly within the ecosystem in itself. And these innovative tools that these brands are allowed to create on their own also allows the brand to create, to be able to collect more consumer data as they move along. So they have a better, clearer picture of who their consumers are, what actually works out for them, and how this actually plays out in terms of what are the right consumers for them to really target in the big festival like Double 11 and be able to convert them along the way as well. So I think really when we're looking at this, the changes in the China ecosystem over the past 18 months, where we're seeing a lot of changes in terms of the diversification of the entire landscape and ecosystem, where brands really need to consider which are the right channels or the right points of conversion within the different touch points, whether it's of course Tmall's, Alibaba's Tmall. Some of the duty-free channels may work out well for certain categories as well. Mm-hmm. Social commerce platforms like Douyin and even Little Red Book is also doing their Double 11 activity as well. So we are looking at a more and more integrated ecosystem that's really happening in China, moving away from the early days where it's really just a few key watering holes where you need to be able to conquer to have success. So it's really about evolving your digital ecosystem in an era that's way more integrated than ever.
It seems like the pandemic had brought us into a new era of commerce and retail again.
So over to you, David.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's phenomenally thought-provoking. I'm interested in the whole sort of concept of the Chinese consumer has been so used to traveling and purchasing, as you say, duty-free traveling, and then maybe luxury goods in the various different countries that they've been visiting. I'm intrigued by the concept of creating duty-free within the regions within China. So as you say, Hainan probably being the best example of that. Do you think that once it's possible to travel, do you think the Chinese consumer will be back traveling, or do you think they might well have lost the urge to go traveling and then spending whilst they're traveling? Is the spend going to be repatriated back into China?
Yeah, I think the impact that number one, because the government policy has changed, they designated the island of Hainan into a duty-free zone, and then another change to that is that they allow consumers who have traveled to Hainan to continue to buy duty-free products through e-commerce from the Hainan retailers for 180 days after their travel. The government has also increased the duty-free purchase quota that the Chinese consumers have. I think it was about triple versus the previous quota. So they can actually buy more duty-free goods along the way. So back to your question, David. So I think in the near future, within the short term at least, I don't think that's going to change very soon. The way that the Chinese government has really locked down in terms of the pandemic is still very strict. Anyone that's coming in from overseas still have to be quarantined. Yeah. Any small burst of cases that happen within domestically, we are still seeing big lockdowns of entire communities as well. So we don't think that there's going to be any quick change within this. I think most Chinese travelers will still be traveling domestically for now. And at the same time, with the changes that in the travel behavior over the last 1 or 2 years as well, I think culturally we see that Chinese consumers are starting to explore more domestic destinations within the country as well. So definitely, eventually, when it does open up, definitely there's going to be a certain degree of recovery. But I think there's definitely going to be a long-term change in behavior in terms of where they're traveling and where they're buying their duty-free products from, because you don't have to travel to Paris to buy a duty-free product anymore. You can just do it on your phone through e-commerce online.
Yeah, I think it's definitely given more possibilities to those who are unable to travel all the time. You have more windows to shopping now.
Yeah. And at the same time, we know that still a very large percentage of Chinese or rather Chinese nationals don't have a passport.
Yeah.
Right. So this actually becomes a very viable way for them to buy.
So in a funny sort of way, the ability now to create a duty-free, stimulative shopping experience for many, many more Chinese consumers than was indeed possible in a travel across the world status.
Yeah. I mean, in the past, very often we see what we call Daigou in China, which are people who be based in London and Paris, and they buy on behalf of consumers that's living in China, and they send the products back. Of course, the pandemic has greatly reduced this because a lot of them don't stay in these cities anymore. But the opening of the e-commerce channels in Hainan has also had a major impact in reducing those channels.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the development of Tmall over the course of the last 12 months to 2.0, and it becoming a more, I suppose, interactive experience. Tell us a little bit about the data flows that you said were coming through, because clearly one of the things that is absolutely apparent about the China e-commerce online marketplace is that it's leading the way right around the world in terms of the ability to be able to use data and real-time data to drive insights and data-led creativity. So in this next iteration, or the current iteration of Tmall 2.0, what data are you able to get hold of and to understand with your clients to create more immersive, creative experiences and engage consumers in things that are much more relevant for them?
I think this comes from two key aspects of what Tmall 2.0 is really about. One big part of it is, as we mentioned, becoming more of an innovative experience based channel where brands can come in and create their own brand experiences. And because all of this is really very trackable, so from a brand standpoint, you already have consumer data that's coming in from the traffic within the platform. You will have related tags about who these consumers really are. Are they white collar, someone that's in their 30s? Is this a new mom, for example? So you get this different type of demographic data that's already available. And then connecting that with what the brands are already doing to create more engaging experiences. So the combination of the profiles that we're getting from the platform, and then going more into deep dive in what type of experience really works for them, what type of content really works for them. I think that's really also helping a lot of brands to be able to fine tune not just the communication and interactivity they're doing within the marketplace platform, but in the entire marketing ecosystem landscape on the whole as well. So on the other side of the spectrum of Tmall 2.0, a lot of it is also driven by the 5G networks. So mobile connectivity is a lot faster now, so everything's driven heavily in terms of the speed. So like the real quick pickup of towing and fast video short content consumption, that's really picking up in Tmall as well. So a very big part on Tmall 2.0 is really driving it into fast decision making through short video content. So in the past, you may search for a product and then go into multiple product pages, read long reviews, and go into long product pages to understand how the product is really about. The platform is really shifting into short video formats. So a little bit similar to some of the social platforms. I search for a product, I see something I like, I click on that, I see a 15-second video, I can buy directly from the video. If I'm not interested, I swipe up, I get a whole bunch of similar products that you could be converted through a 15-second video clip. So it really changes the way that consumers are consuming and shortens their decision-making time. It also forces brands to relook at how they're creating this type of content.
Yes. I mean, TV, presumably that's puts a lot of onus on the brands, and indeed us working for the brands, to create a lot more content, a lot more sort of more relevant content.
Yeah, that's right. Because it really forces the brands to really look at their content strategy as well. Because if you're just trying to take a 15-second TVC and putting it into a format like this, it really doesn't work. It really needs to come in from the consumer perspective. What is the real, number one, of course, what's the real clickbait to get the consumers interested? It's really a social approach. And taking social approach, short video content, and then turning it into e-commerce conversion based scenario.
And your 15-second content is not in your brand section and page anymore. It's mixed together with all of the other brands.
That's right.
So if your 15-second content cannot attract them to buy, then they're swiping up and looking at some other brands.
That's right.
So also does that blur the distinction? Or to be honest, the distinction has been blurred for a while, but maybe it makes it much more fluid, that one has to build the brand at the same time as getting people to want to push the buy button. You know, there needs to be a double duty of all types of communication, which is, you know, it has to be brand building as well as creating a response, an immediate response.
Yes, that's definitely the case. Yeah. So at the same time, you know, a lot of top selling brands within the China market, especially in Tmall, are not necessarily just large global brands. There are a lot of brands that are created natively on the marketplace, leveraging consumer data and really doing test and learn and building the brands up from there. So those brands really build their entire tonality and their product portfolio through operating on an e-commerce platform and understanding the insights and doing test and learn on that. So I think it's becoming more and more of that type of evolution system for brands to really effectively do quick test and learns, identify more about who their consumer prospects are and how that could potentially influence how they're communicating outside of e-commerce platforms as well.
Well, I mean, I think this is another really good reason why people who are watching should take a lot of note of what's going on in China, because what's going on in China here is advances to where probably is in most countries at the moment in terms of the way in which those data flows are working, and also in terms of data-led creativity around them. But this is coming to you soon. You talked a little bit about the change that you've seen in China related to faster mobile connections we're going to be seeing that roll out around Europe and around America and the rest of Asia soon as well. Maybe certainly not as fast as China, but it's happening in that direction. So another good reason for everybody really to take note of what's happening now over in the 11/11 period, because it will have an impact for you and your markets over the course of the next few years, and it's much better to understand that now and get prepared for that and to learn from that experience. Now, both of you have been watching 11/11, I suppose, through two lenses, one as a communications and marketing professionals, and the other as consumers yourself. What have you seen so far in the 11/11 activity that you think are great strategic plays?
Yeah, I think one of the trends that a lot of consumers have been noticing is that the mechanics behind Double 11 have becoming increasingly complex,
yes.
Especially over the last 3 years, right? When Double 11 really kicked off, initially it was very simple. Everything's at half price, right? And then it became more and more complicated with pre-sales, multiple phases of pre-sales. You need to do engagement, you need to do social sharing, invite your friends, and then there's different tiers of coupons that come along the way. So you actually really need to do a lot to unlock the full potential of the discounts. Many brands may think that, isn't this making it more difficult for my consumers to buy? Shouldn't I just make the consumer experience a lot more easy? But actually, there's a lot of strategic thinking, especially from a platform point of view, where if you think of consumers on simply bucket them into two lots of people. One lot of people who are extremely price sensitive. They will go through the whole process to get the lowest price. But at the same time, we have a lot of consumers who are just in for the action. I just want to come in, there's a good deal, I just pick it up. It doesn't have to be the cheapest deal, right? I may not have the time to do that. Then I don't go through the entire process and do all that social sharing and check out the live stream. But I pay a slightly higher price, but I still get a discount.
Yeah.
But from a brand and a platform standpoint, I don't have to give a 50% off to everyone. For the consumers who are willing to go through that process, they get the best price. But for the other set of consumers who are willing to pay 15 or 20% more, then the brands make 15 or 20% more off from those consumers.
Now, we said a number of times yesterday that it seems to be impossible at the moment to have a conversation where the word metaverse isn't inserted somewhere in the dialogue. So let's get this over with fast, and let's talk a little bit about the metaverse. What are you seeing again from your professional lens and your consumer lens of metaverse activity however you want to describe it and what you want to call it, but this sort of new way of being able to communicate? Is that something that is beginning to appear during 11/11 and obviously will then continue afterwards?
I think there's definitely a lot of attention on this. I think the clients that we're talking to, the platforms that we're speaking to, even technology vendors, everyone is talking about it. So it's a heated discussion. But I think for China right now, even though clients are tapping into seeing what kind of possibilities they can have in order to interact with their consumers in the metaverse or building their own or collaborating with a platform, I think we are still at a very initial stage of brands and platforms looking at virtual avatars. How can they find possible? It's actually very closely connected to the whole commerce and retail needs, whether it's Double 11, whether it's live streaming selling. We're actually seeing a couple of cases of creating a so-called metaverse virtual idol or metaverse virtual live streaming host in order to sell more for them in this space. So it seems to us that at the very beginning stage of metaverse right now in China, I think they're trying to see a quick way of adapting that technology to help them tapping more into the commerce and retail space and be more competitive. That's what we're seeing right now. But then under the table, there's still a lot of technology discussion and potentials on platforms to really build something.
Well, I'm sure over the course of the next 12 months to 11/11/2022, there'll be a lot of development in this
Probably.
space.
Metaverse shopping.
Yes, I suppose in a similar way that sort of live streaming started maybe a couple of years ago at 11/11 has become pretty mainstream. What you're using live streaming a lot for various different clients and also strategic opportunities. What are your main learnings so far from live streaming?
I think for live streaming, I think there were some big news that have come out from China's Double 11 over the past few days. I think the top two key influencers, so Austin Lee and Bea, I think they did 20 million in sales in one day. 20 billion in sales in one day.
Yes.
So again, that has sparked out the entire conversation about the role of live streaming and whether the top influencers still play such a big role. I think it has proven itself that the top influencers still hold the biggest conversion powers within the market. I think the past few years there was some conversation about building more mid-tier or low-tier influencers and then how that could actually spread out a little bit more. But I think it's still very clear that the powerhouse is still lying with the selected few. Definitely a lot of it has to do with the algorithm of the platforms where traffic is being assigned to these top influencers.
Right.
But the way that the brands work with these influencers is also becoming increasingly challenging because these top influencers engage with so many brands and they definitely have a lot of bargaining chips on the sides. So if you want to get into my show, my program, you need to provide the best offer online into my live streaming house. So that's definitely a challenge that a lot of brands work with. But at the same time, a lot of brands are really working on building more of their own brand live streaming content.
Right.
So the example we gave of Teeny was a very good example just now. They are top in category and they don't really use the top influencers. They go more in terms of context of how to build more storytelling. Of course, they would have some celebrities in there, but they don't depend on the top live streamers to drive discounting driven sales, basically.
So it's interesting what you say, because I think many people might think, well, the 2-3 maybe really top live streamers would love, all I need to do is just give them my product, come to a commercial deal, and it'll be featured. But from what you're saying, they're actually getting very selective now about the sorts of brands and the products that they are prepared to put into their live streaming. So it's that becomes its challenge in its own right.
That's right. Because they are able to drive so much conversion that, of course, everyone wants to get onto their program. But that, of course, becomes a competition as well. So there's only so much slots of products they can put on each live streaming show. So at the same time, the commercial negotiation behind that becomes a big part as well. So of course, they take a percentage cut of the sales, but it's not just about the commercial conversation. It's not just about the percentage cut they get, but what type of offer the brand can provide to their viewers, to the live streamers people. So they definitely demand that they get the best offer on their channel versus what they're putting in.
Is that offer just price, or is that offer a combination of maybe bundled products or other ways of adding value to what they get with that product that is unique to that particular live streamer?
I think it is definitely a combination of both. But I won't say that it's everything's fair and balanced. I would say it's probably 80% driven by the actual price of the product, and then maybe about 20% if there's let's say if this is an exclusive product, or if this product actually has a bunch of bundled deals that come along with that. But it's definitely more heavily driven towards the price.
Now, is there anything that surprised you this year? Your seasoned 11/11 consumers and watchers, but obviously every year there's something that pops up that probably is different and surprising. So from your perspective, what surprised you?
I think from my perspective, so if we look at the rate of growth within a lot of platforms over the past few years, it has been very, very drastic growth, right? Definitely there's a certain degree of slowing down because the scale has gotten so big. But I think one thing that was interesting to me, it wasn't really a shock, but it was interesting to me, is that if you're looking at the entire market on the whole, the growth is still on that trajectory. But what we have seen is that the growth has really spread out a little bit into multiple different channels. So it's not just being on a selected few channels where the growth is really growing extremely fast. That growth is really spreading out. So a lot of that has to do with, of course, the rise of social commerce platforms, and then more and more D2C channels. D2C may be a little bit less in terms of that, but I think a big part of that, especially for some specific categories, like luxury and beauty, the duty-free channels we talked about actually cannibalize that a lot as well. So the deals that you're getting on Double 11, you can imagine you're going to get probably maybe an even better deal through Double 11 that's running on the duty-free retailer.
Now, of course, all that makes it much more complex. We talked a little bit about complexity earlier. How do you, from a management perspective of creating campaigns for clients, of making them as effective as possible, how do you manage that complexity around the 11/11 planning to create really high performance teams across your teams and client teams as well?
Yeah. I think from the agency's perspective, there's definitely going to be a huge dependency on the platforms that the brand is already on first. So if a brand that is only on Tmall, then it makes things a lot easier. We just have to drive traffic in Tmall, have the right activations on the platform. Definitely, you still need to do a lot of 360 activations outside of the Tmall environment to drive traffic into Tmall. But again, if the brand is that we are working with is also on JD, if they're also on Douyin, if they have their own D2C channels, a lot of beauty brands also are on the duty-free channels as well, then it becomes increasingly complex. Then you need to drive traffic into multiple different channels, and the different marketplaces have different priorities as well. So there's a lot of resource exchange that happens on a key moment like Double 11. So you take part with some of the requirements that the platform has, then they will in turn give you a lot of traffic resources from within the platform. So I think it really goes back into what the client, what channels the clients are already on. And then the gameplay really comes from that. It becomes increasingly complex with more channels. But I think it's something that more brands really have to look to right now, because the consumer behavior is really changing and really diversifying.
Finally, what have you put in your shopping baskets this year to buy? I mean, maybe you bought them already. Let's have a little glimpse of what's attracted you both and why. Joyce, go on.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm in the second bucket. So I think all of those long stretch mechanisms are pretty confusing to me. So first, I actually put a lot of stuff in the basket first, and then I ended up eliminating a lot of them because I didn't understand them. So I actually ended up getting, I have some wine glasses. I have the tendency to break a lot during parties. I have some household stuff, actually large household electronic stuff, like kitchen stuff. I've purchased a lot. So bigger items, over a couple of thousands that you usually take a little longer to make the decision. You usually get really prominent discounts. So those are the ones that I would go for, more straightforward.
Myself,
James.
I think, yeah, I mean, for myself, I think this year, my behavior has changed quite a bit. For example, this year I focused primarily on number one, snacks. So I bought a fair bit of snacks from a multitude of different brands. Several of them actually come from what we call the e-commerce marketplace native brands, right? Like Three Squirrels, right? So it's a brand that's curated for the e-commerce environment. And then I'm a photographer, hobbyist. So I bought a fair bit of photography gear as well. But I think the change for myself is that I used to buy some skincare products during the Double 11 period, definitely because of the discounting, etc. But to be honest, because of the changes with the duty-free channel, right? So that category for myself has shifted into the duty-free channel.
Oh.
Well, from one photographer to another, James, I absolutely agree with you. It's impossible to have too much photography gear. So I hope you got some good new products. James and Joyce from Wunderman Thompson in China. It's been a A pleasure and delight talking to you. It's been amazingly insightful. Thank you very much indeed for giving up some of your Friday afternoon, evening time for us. It's much appreciated. I hope this weekend, because I'm sure last weekend was amazingly busy, you might get some rest before we enter into the second and final week of 11 and the big day on the 11th itself. But for the moment, James and Joyce from Wunderman Thompson China, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Well, we're now joined by Benji Lam from Vitabiotics. Benji, good morning. Lovely to see you again.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Now we can hear you. We could see you, but we couldn't hear you. So excellent. Now we've got vision and sound. Fantastic. Benji, yesterday when we left you, you were having to make a number of decisions in terms of what some of your bundles of products were going to be for the second part of 11.11. How did those discussions go?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, what we found was our CTR, our click-through rate, is up about 4% this year. So that was, we were looking at that through the lens of bundles. So the decisions made were that we actually amended a number of those products. Oh, my cat's joining us. Hello.
Oh, excellent. Hello. Well, what's the cat's name?
This is Nales. He's actually a Shanghai street cat, saved from the mean streets. So she's just come to say hello. So a number of those product bundles changed with some different variations. And we noted, because we were focusing more on video to connect to those different product bundles being what was hosted on our flagship store, that our click-through rate was up about 4%, which is really positive year on year. And we attribute that largely to the free flow of traffic from Douyin. There's less limitations between these different ecosystems now. So a lot of the video content served on Douyin is driving higher traffic volumes to Tmall.
And is this the first time you'll be able to really track from platform to platform to understand what the flows or the customer flows are being?
It's a very big question you could unpick for hours, but historically it's been harder to drive traffic between different ecosystems in China. With current policy, there's a greater flow of traffic, and there's a greater flow of being able to track that through either brand data bank on the Tmall backend, or on the Ali Cloud bespoke software that we've developed on top of that.
Now this year you're getting more data from Ali Cloud. Maybe in the few minutes we've got left, you can talk a little bit about the concept of that, and on Monday we can go into some of the specifics of what data you've got and what decisions you've made over the weekend relating to it.
The top line concept is that we can track user IDs within Tmall and off-site outside of Tmall, and then we can match those user IDs. So we can then serve an ad and then reserve an ad to those that we've either touched outside of the channel or within the channel. And we can track how they've engaged with different types of content outside the channel to inform how we're retouching with them inside the channel. So it's cross-learning between these two different data sets, and that's where the bespoke Ali Cloud service comes in for activation purposes.
Now, am I right in saying that up until this year, that type of data was only available to the big mega brands?
Yeah, it was a Unilever P&G service, and we tried to worm our way in. And it's
well done.
I think it's testament to the Ali team, actually. Like we've got 5 or 6 Ali Cloud guys working on this project with us. It's testament that they see the value in applying this to a medium-sized enterprise, I think.
Well, Benji, we will be back with you on Monday to talk about, I suppose, your reflections from a Vitabiotics perspective from the first week, and clearly, obviously, before that first week, we've had the pre-sales, and to get your views and perspectives on that, and also looking forward to the next week, and the final push and the course corrections that you may well be needing to do on the basis of the information that you're getting. Benji, I'm not certain whether you will get any rest over the weekend, but a big thanks. Benji Lam, who's the Director of China for Vitabiotics and also for Asia as well. Benji's been with us all week and giving us an in-depth insight to what's going on with Vitabiotics every day, and also some contextual insight as well on doing business in China. Benji, much appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you on Monday. I hope you do get a little bit of a rest. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Hope you're not bored of my voice and my face yet. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks very much indeed. And we will be back in just a few moments when we will be talking about sustainability and purpose with our colleagues again live from Asia. Do tune back very soon. Thanks very much indeed. Bye.